Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Up next is Newspaper Review.
All right, thank you for joining us. Let's quickly begin with the Daily Times.
What happened to your friend?
Sorry, Demola, you went here yesterday. Chukwude, it's under the weather.
I know you will be under the weather with the bashing that they received over the weekend. It's okay, no problem. Go ahead.
What bashing? I don't want to talk about anything. You know what they say? You know what they say? An Arsenal fan is a husband material. That's what someone said. Because of the steadfastness.
You kid yourself. Let's go. Let's go.
All right. Anyway, Dewala, good to see you. Let's quickly begin with the Daily Times. Senate moods altering FAC composition to include LGA reps. That story is on page 2. And Tinubu, Jonathan, Akpabio, and others eulogized Clark at his funeral yesterday. Now, Nigeria to integrate 10 million out of school children by 2027. And just below the nameplate, well, this is the picture. The picture story is actually quite interesting there. You see the former president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, and former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar right there. Of course, it's always, encouraging to see our leaders, shake hands, extend handshakes. It's quite interesting. Just below that picture story, other stories are trending. Deploy swift military action to tackle BH resurgence in the Northeast. That's according to the Senate. And there are other stories, of course, on this on the front page of the Daily Times. But let me quickly look at the front page of the Business Nigeria. Now, Business Nigeria is leading with NNPC fails to remit full subsidy savings, says World Bank. And other stories there. Of course, this is a business inclined paper. It says US-China rift won't rattle Africa. And that's coming from AfriBank. Naira wobbles at 1,620 Naira despite oil rebound. Is also there. And then there's a petrol pump price may drop below 900 Naira per litre as marketers plan adjustment. You can read of this story on page 2. Let us also look at blackout crisis worsens in Buhari as AEDC TCN stall repairs. Residents threaten mass protest. That story is on page 2. And that's all I have. Demola.
Okay, I have the Leadership newspaper and Daily Trust, but let me start with Leadership newspaper. Just above the nameplate, we are building critical transport infrastructure in FCT. That's the FCT Minister Wike. The details of that story can be found on page 6. Senate 6, inclusion of LG representatives in FAC. Details on page 6. And we have the below the nameplate. REE signs agreement with 58 firms for solar mini grids. Details on page 7. At Lamido's book launch, OBJ says our job not done. Details of that story can be found on page 17. Then we have concerns over INEC's 142 electoral reform proposals. CSO analysts express worry over delay, fear it may affect 2027 general elections. Reforms on course, lawmakers, reps reject bill on rotational presidency. Details of that story, which is the main story, it's on page 4. Federal government integrates AI in curriculum delivery. Details on page 8. APC caucus swells to 68 as 3 PDP senators join party. Court rules on Natasha's suspension on June 27, while CNG bus initiative is not working in state. Details of that story is on page 17. Then we have the front page picture there, cross-section of National Youth Service Corps members in a parade during the closing ceremony of Batch A Stream 1 orientation camp at Kubwa Orientation Camp in Abuja yesterday. Now let's move on to Daily Trust newspaper, right? And just below that nameplate of the Daily Trust, we have how to prevent sudden death in people over 60. Details of that story, it's on page 36. Reps reject bill on rotational presidency. We have the details of that story on page 38. Tax reform, Senate endorses 5% excise duty. Details on page 6. Then we have these Boko Haram kills 4 soldiers, renewed onslaught on military bases, the attack location. We have details on page 3 and 4. Lamido and I would have challenged Tinubu if we were governors. Amechi. Details on page 5. Rivers women protest abduction of 8 students traveling for WASC. Details on page 10. Qatar gift Trump $400 million jet. Details on page 8. Kidnappers invade FCT community, kill 3, abduct 1.
You know, Demola, there's an interesting story here that I would like us to look at. It's on the front page of the Daily Times, just a little above the nameplate, you know, about reintegrating 10 million out-of-school children by 2027. And, you know, it's so funny that since 2017, 2018, when this figure came out, you know, it's still been, you know, carried every time you hear 10 million out of school, and it raises a lot of questions. One, is the number static?
It's not that the number is static. I just think that, you know, as you reintegrate some of them into schools, right, you have more coming in.
And it remains 10 million.
No. I don't think so. They need to update their...
Yes, that's precisely what I'm saying.
They just
you
need
to update to
yes.
At least to accommodate, you know, efforts that have been made both at the state and national.
Which means that they need to state the efforts that they have made.
Because
the number of pupils that they have integrated into schools and the ones that are yet to.
Yes.
You understand? That will just put paid to that. But I think they are making efforts.
Yes, because, you know, this data, that's why, you know, some people say, look, let us also give credit to NBS, because NBS will give you a more, you know, realistic or credible data as to the number of children that are out of school now, especially with the renewed, you know, onslaught here and there of these insurgents. But I thought I should point that out. Then the Senate altering fact composition to include RGE reps. It's also on the Daily Times.
Yeah, it's here. I think I read it here as well. That the Senate wants, is it the Senate now? Okay, yes. Wants LG representative, you know, at FARC. Well, so that to allow for some transparency, I think.
Yes, because if you know if you recall the autonomy, you know, the financial autonomy, you know, given to the local government.
Yes.
So this certainly, it's in line to accommodate that, you know, and to also reflect, you know, the Supreme Court's ruling and all that. So I think we're moving in the right direction.
Yes, the Senate has called for urgent restructuring of the federal account, that is FARC, to include representative of local government and area councils. There has followed a motion by Deputy Senate President Baru Jibril. Anyway, I think it's a good development. It is.
But there's a sad story
Okay, the Boko Haram
Boko Haram.
kills 4 soldiers in renewed onslaught on military bases. You know, we talked about this issue of this upsurge of banditry again, especially in the northwest. And well, we just hope that the government at all levels, they are collaborating. You know, they have to collaborate to actually to stem this tide. And
you know, the Senate is calling on the military to deploy swift action, military action, to tackle Boko Haram resurgence in the northeast. And I know a number of security, analysts have come to say, look, probably what you need is a combination of kinetic and non-kinetic, solutions. Well, Senate in their wisdom, members of the Senate in their wisdom know, the extent, of action they are asking the military to take. I mean, this is not encouraging at all that Boko Haram is, making a serious comeback and killing 4 soldiers. And you know what it means when, soldiers, die in the hands of insurgents.
Actually, when we had the discussion on Monday, I mean, what they guessed, what they suggested was that they should release, enough funds, to the military for them to be able to acquire, the latest, equipment to be able to combat all these insurgencies, because a lot of times you hear that billions, have been allocated, to purchase, arms and ammunition, but they don't get released. You understand? So how do you now fight all these, insurgency that they are coming with latest, weapons? It's so difficult for them. So they have to work on that, and the locals and the different the government, that is the state governments, the local government, and the federal government, they also must work together, because without that you cannot, fight this insurgency that is, coming up again.
I don't know if it is a matter of having the latest, equipment to fight Boko Haram. The implication will be that the Boko Haram insurgents are better equipped.
They are.
But that
is what they are actually saying, that they are better equipped with all the latest gadget that they have. But like, I think it was Professor Oke that said it, that, I mean, if you, equip the military, give them the drones, just one drone is enough. You understand? To be able to fight.
I always recall this. I recall when we went to Maiduguri, Borno State. One of the fighting men said to us, see, Nigerian military is better equipped to wipe out the insurgents within few months. Within few months. So in terms of equipment, really, I don't know, but I just think that there needs to be a kind of political will to really tackle, the insurgents. There needs to be a kind of coming together, like you said, a rapprochement between fighting men and the communities.
That's the thing. The locals and then the governments at all, level, they must collaborate.
Because
if not,
these people, they are not invincible. They're within the communities. They relate with the communities. So,
well, also to prevent sudden death in people over 60.
Well, we talked about one of our colleagues
that slumped and died. I
think Ogun State Television. Okay. One Bukola, may her soul rest in peace, and our hearts, go to her family and her children. But it would be good to know how to prevent that. I think that's why it's on what page, so people could.
I think it's on page. It's just that. What are they saying now? It said that. It said sudden death. We mean unexpected death in an individual previously thought to be well. quite well. Common causes of this: severe hypertension, acute heart failure, stroke, heart disease, and also known as disorder of heart rhythm. So what you just need to do is do your normal exercise and make sure that you go for a normal, medical checkup. That's just it.
I think frequent medical check is quite ideal. You see people who slump while in the process of exercising.
Yeah, that
yes,
is.
yes. So the first step is, of course, do your routine medical check. Unfortunately, it doesn't come easy these days. It doesn't come cheap, but still do the preliminary checks to determine how healthy you are. The business Nigeria has some business stories. It says NNPC fails to remit full subsidy savings, and this is coming from the World Bank. The World Bank is saying to us that our own NNPC is not remitting full subsidy savings. Well,
well, you need.
I hear someone says, "God have mercy." Indeed, God will have mercy. Let me just read that. It says, speaking at the launch of May 2025 Nigeria Development Update in Abuja, the World Bank lead economist for Nigeria said, although the official exchange rate was adopted for fuel transactions by NNPC in October 2024, marking the end of implicit subsidies, the financial windfall from that move is not yet fully flowing into public coffers. Questions. So we leave it at that. Do you have other stories?
Well, we have this APC caucus swells to 68 as PDP senators join party. Well, they have the majority now. Out of 100 or so, let me just check the details. I think right now the APC now has like 68 seats out of the 109 member Senate. 68. PDP now has 30 seats.
I just remain, and I think we should leave the politicians alone. I just like to remain with finally, just before we leave it at this, the U.S.-China rift won't rattle Africa, Afrim Bank. And so if you were thinking, or if you had the fear that it might affect us, Afribank is saying no. It's saying that Africa's direct trade with the U.S. stands at just 5%, and 12% with China, totaling 17%, barely above intra-African trade at 16%. So that limited exposure, it noted, means Africa is not deeply entangled in the commercial friction between the two superpowers. All right, I think...
and here, I mean, they're giving reason why CNG buses are not, working in some states. It's more facts are emerging on why the compressed natural gas buses are not working in states after more than a year since the federal government announced the conversion policy. And, so we don't know. It is good news that we have purchased, but the states that are finding it difficult to purchase the buses now because of the cost, we are smart enough to purchase them earlier. I'm reassuring you that immediately the plans are completed, the buses will start working. Nothing has happened to the buses. Well,
Demola, I think we'll leave it at that, and of course tomorrow will be another day to review the newspapers. If you're watching, this is Good Morning Nigeria. Please don't go away. We're looking at efforts to reform the discourse.